All right, let's get going. All right. Welcome, everybody. My name is Brian Pittenger, and I'm a board member with the Upper Midwest branch of the International Dyslexia Association. Welcome to the webinar tonight, which will be featuring Jeannie Munsterman on reading instruction. It's just one of more than a dozen webinars that IDA UMB presents each year for free for parents, teachers, and support providers. All of our webinars are recorded, including this one, and you can find older webinars at our website, www.ida-umb.org. Before we start, you'll notice that your microphones are muted, which makes it easier for everyone to hear, but obviously we do want to get your questions, and you can type them anytime in the questions box on the right side of this GoToWebinar control panel window that you see. One of the things that our IDA branch really values is being able to provide this kind of a webinar series free of charge for everybody. We can do this because our speakers generously donate their time and expertise, so thank you, Jeannie. And because our members' donations make this possible. If you're not a member, please consider joining us as a member this year. You can find more about it at our website, again, www.ida-umb.org. Our first 50 new members this fall receive a free book, Words by Marcia Henry. So please do take advantage of that. With that out of the way, I really want to introduce our presenter for tonight. Jeannie Munsterman has over 30 years in education. Her passion and desire for reading success for all students, combined with her constant quest for high-quality teacher training, led her to IDA UMB back in 2003. As a result, Jeannie went on to supplement her teaching degree with Orton Gillingham training. She's a certified member of the Academy of Orton Gillingham Practitioners and Educators, AOGPE, and holds a master's in human development with the focus on scientific, research-based reading instruction. She's served as a director and teacher of a preschool, taught kindergarten, first, second, and fourth grade, and served as a reading intervention teacher working with small groups of first through third grade students using the Orton Gillingham approach. Jeannie served on the Content Advisory Committee Birth to Grade 3 Test Framework of Review for the new reading rules and the Minnesota Teacher Licensure Examination Materials Review. Since retiring, Jeannie's been involved in the Reading Center's Summer Basic Institute How to Teach Reading as one of their master teachers, and has also taught the Reading Center's Orton Gillingham Infusion Training in the public school. So we're really excited to have you here tonight. Welcome, Jeannie. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
You are welcome. Thank you, Brian, for the introduction. Let me just advance my slide here and begin. Tonight's agenda, I would like to share with you the background of the journey that I had finding the effective reading instruction that really does work. And my hope is in sharing my journey, your journey will be a lot shorter than mine was. I will share the big five of effective reading instruction and the importance of the multisensory part of the instruction. And I'll also be sharing some resources with you. So my journey began over 30 years ago when I began teaching. And what I noticed is that so often every year I would have those one or two students that were, I could tell, very intelligent, but they struggled to learn how to read. And for those 30 years of my teaching, I was always searching. I was taking college classes, I was taking workshops, seminars, anything that I could get my hands on to help with that journey or that quest of what would work. Well, I took a leave of absence, and then during that leave of absence, I had the chance to tutor a student one-on-one. And so I thought, of course, now that I have one-on-one, that's going to be the answer. That student is going to be able to, I'll just take him so far. Well, and it was a non-reader in about third grade, and I was able to take him a ways, but not far enough. I couldn't get him past just simple little one-syllable words. And so I started looking again for answers. And my aha moment came in 2003 when this article appeared in Time magazine. And it said, Overcoming Dyslexia, What New Brain Science Reveals and What Parents Can Do. And I thought, oh, good. If parents can do something, we teachers should be able to do something also. So I devoured that article. And from there, I went on to find out what does work. And it needs to be scientifically research-based. It needs to be based on quality research. And it was outlined in the National Reading Panel back in 2000. They were assigned the job of looking at past research and finding out from past research what it is that is absolutely necessary for effective reading instruction. And the ongoing research today still supports that. So let's take a look and find out what that looks like. So the big five of quality reading instruction needs to include 5 areas. The first area is phonemic awareness, and we will take a look at each of these 5 areas in closer detail, but I wanted to give you the big picture first. So it's phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and of course comprehension. Comprehension is what we want. So let's take a look at each one of those separately. Let's take a look at phonemic awareness. That is the ability to isolate and manipulate individual sounds in spoken words. And it needs to be directly taught. It can't be just left to chance. And we need to start it in preschool, and we need to continue it beyond first grade. Some examples of what phonemic awareness is. In the word at, if you heard, now pretend you're not seeing the word at, but if you just heard the word at, phonemic awareness would be able to separate those sounds and know that when you hear at, you know that the sounds are at. And an itch, if you heard the word itch, you would know that it has 2 sounds, itch. And the word top, if you just heard the word top, you would know that there are 3 separate sounds, t, a, p. And in stop, there are 4 separate sounds, st, a, p. And in stopped, the sounds would be st, a, p, t. So that is what phonemic awareness is, being able to produce those sounds of the individual sounds in the words, just the hearing of it. And phonemic awareness is just so important for reading. It is quite a predictor of possible success in reading. And it is that skill of putting those sounds together to identify a word or a syllable by hearing. So, for example, dish, it's d, it, sh. And in this one, they would know if they heard t, r, e, m, they would know that putting those sounds together, blending them together, would be trem, like the syllable in tremble. Or s, ow, n, d, hearing those and blending them back together for the word sound. It is so important for students to have that confidence and skill of phonemic awareness. It's essential. And students need phonemic awareness to be able to spell. And it's the skill of separating those individual sounds in words and syllables. For example, in tenth, t, e, n, th, and stretch. It's st, r. Those first 3 letters, even though it's a blend that goes together, str, it's st, r, ch when it's separated out. And camper, it's important to also be able to separate by syllables. For example, camper has 2 syllables, so they're able to go cam, first syllable, k, a, m, second syllable, per, p, er. Just wanted to give you some hands-on examples of what we mean by phonemic awareness. It is essential. And in phonics is the next big five of the big five, and it's the relationship between written letters and spoken sounds. And it is based on the alphabetic principle, the letters in the alphabet. And that systematic, explicit, multisensory phonics instruction, when it is delivered appropriately, it results in increased reading success for all students, not just the struggling readers. And so then let's link the phonemic awareness and the phonics together. In reading, it's blending those sounds into words. And then in spelling, it's isolating or separating those sounds that need to be written. So quality phonics instruction is more than just the sounds and the letters. It includes also the English language structure. And by the English language structure, we have the core curriculum of what we're teaching to the students in their reading courses. And then along with that, into that core curriculum are syllable types, syllable division, and morphology. So it's more than just the sounds and letters. It is also incorporating these three items also. And let's take a closer look at those items. So in syllable types, all of our words are divided into syllable types. There are 6 syllable types, and I'm going to show you the 6 right now and explain those a little bit. The first one we're going to talk about is closed. In a closed syllable, as you can see, there's one vowel pattern in these 2 words that you're looking at. The O is a vowel pattern, and it's closed in by a consonant, and usually then the vowel will have its short sound. In this case, it's ah, like in not and lock. The next syllable type is the consonant LE. And in noble and gobble, you see that there is at the end a consonant, an L, and an E. And counting back those 3 and dividing reveals the first syllable. The third syllable type is an open syllable. An open syllable ends in a vowel. It could be also a vowel all by itself, like the letter I, or O in open would be an open syllable. And those usually have the long sound where the vowels say their name. So O in go, O in so. Syllable types are so important because they give clues on what sounds those vowels will have. The next syllable type is called a vowel team. And a vowel team are a vowel with another letter or a group of letters that makes a new sound. So in the word noun, the OU comes together to make a vowel team that says ow. And in grow, the OW comes together to make another vowel sound, O, as in grow. And it could even be IGH to say I, like in the word night. So vowel teams can have 2 or more letters with a vowel to make a new sound. Then we have a silent E syllable, and that is consistent of one vowel followed by a single consonant followed by an E. That silent E makes the vowel have its long sound or to say its name. So O in vote and O in rope. And the last one, or the 6th one, is the R controlled. It's a vowel along with an R that forms a new sound, such as in the word form and torn. It can be EAR as in earth, or EAR as in learn. So those 6 syllable types are powerful. And when students begin to learn those syllable types, they start to understand how words work. And that is just very, very, very powerful and very necessary for successful learning in the reading area. There are also 7 syllable division rules. That's a powerful and valuable decoding strategy for unlocking words also. We'll just go through those to give you an idea of what they are. If you see two vowels between two consonants, between two vowels, as you see here, you divide between the consonants. And then that first syllable is a closed, which would indicate that the vowel will have its short sound. I as in intend and as in subject. The next one is when you see only one consonant between two vowels. The most common division then is after the first vowel. So in omit, there's an open syllable with just one vowel is the open syllable. And in final, the I says I, it has that long sound. Now, you might have that same pattern, but it didn't make a recognizable word, so you divide after the consonant instead, and then the syllable is closed, making the vowel have its short sound. E like in clever, and A like in solid. There's that consonant LE that goes along with that syllable pattern we saw. And counting back 3, that's where you divide. And then it reveals what the first syllable is. In title, that first syllable then is open, so that the students would know that the I probably is going to have its long sound, I, as in title. And counting back 3 in startle, divide, there is that R-controlled vowel pattern, star, in the word startle. There are only a few of the next one where you divide between the two vowels, as in fluid and quiet. And those aren't quite as common. And then we have the compound words where we divide between two words. And then there's the prefix, rut, suffix, as an adjective, reporter, and uninterrupted. So those are prefixes, ruts, and suffixes. So those 7 syllable division rules are very, very necessary. And when my students started learning those syllable types and those syllable division rules, that's when he started making gains again. That was absolutely, absolutely essential. The next one of the big 5 we're going to talk about is fluency. And fluency, of course, is important. And it is that ability to read orally with accuracy, proper expression, and a speed adequate for comprehension. So fluency is more than just reading fast. It needs to be accurate so that you can comprehend. Needs to have proper expression, because with the expression it's indicating comprehension, and it has to be, again, at that speed that's adequate for comprehension. So fluency for somebody might be different depending on what you're reading. If you're reading a novel, your fluency might be faster, but if you're reading maybe directions on how to fix something, you might be reading slower to help you comprehend it. So fluency is more than just reading fast. It's really an important item to note. Along with building fluency, we need to help students develop automaticity. That means being able to easily segment words into their separate sounds or their separate phonemes. And letter names, need to know those. Letter sounds, absolutely necessary that they are automatic, that a student sees the sound and instantly recognizes they see the letter sound spelling. They see the spelling of it, and they instantly know what sound that would produce. And advanced sound patterns. So building automaticity, or that quick recognition of these things, helps the fluency. It helps to build fluency. There is a fluency word of caution I want to share with you. Lack of fluency may be due to weak skills in possibly that phonemic awareness. Maybe it's weak skills in the phonics or the decoding, the sounding out of words, such as the letter sounds, or the syllable patterns, or the syllable division. So we need to understand and find out what is the underlying cause of poor fluency. Another one of the big five is vocabulary. And it's very, very important that it is explicitly taught, that it needs to be taught very carefully and deliberately. It needs to be included in reading, not only in the reading classes, but also, of course, in the content area instruction. For example, the science classes and the social studies classes, the geography classes. So that vocabulary comes in to instruction. It also needs to include morphology. That would be the study of roots, for example, tract in the word traction or tractor, meaning to pull, and affixes, for example, the ed, like at the end of landed, to show action completed, or a prefix at the beginning, for example, re, meaning back or again, as in re-zip or redo. So the definitions and the vocabulary of the morphology is also very, very important. As in reported, port meaning to carry, the ed shows action completed, and re means back or again. So if you reported something, it could mean that you have carried the message back, and you have in essence reported it because you have carried it back. And of course, comprehension is our fifth one, and it is the ultimate goal of reading. It is understanding what has been read. And the comprehension strategies can and must be directly taught. So we need to keep in mind that asking questions after a story has been read is checking comprehension, but it is not teaching comprehension. So there's a difference there. If we're only asking questions after a story has been read, all we're doing is checking comprehension. But we need to teach comprehension. There are several strategies that can be used to teach comprehension. Some of them are retelling, learning how to retell the story, predicting, using the information that you have read to predict what might happen next, reading with a certain purpose in mind, the use of graphic organizers, asking questions during reading, visualizing, picturing what you're reading, and asking yourself the question, does this make sense? Now, reading interventions and remediation then need to be explicit, directly taught, purposefully, with an emphasis on word recognition. Needs to be intense, and it needs to be directly taught. It must be encouraging, and it must be systematic. And it needs to be driven by progress monitoring data. Here's an example of a progress monitoring graph. This is a graph, the one I'm going to show you is a student who had entered kindergarten with low knowledge of early literacy skills, some of that phonemic awareness, letter names, and letter sounds. Now this is in grade 2. What we are looking at, the black line is showing the aim line. We want the student to be going along this line so that if they are going along that line, they are on schedule for meeting grade level goals. This particular student, the red dots show how many words were read correctly in 1 minute. And as you can see, this student was making gains with the interventions that were being provided. Down here, the green, we want that to be low because that's the errors made. And as you can see, at the end line there, the errors were getting less and less, and the words read per minute were increasing. And so the broken line shows the trend of where this student is going, and this student actually is above the expected aim line. So they are well on their way to making a very good progress. And so that's an example of one progress monitoring graph that would be helpful to drive the instruction. This would indicate that the interventions that are being offered are indeed appropriate because they are working. An intervention instruction, continuing on, must include the phonological awareness training, the sounds and the letters and how they go together. It needs to have systematic phonics instruction that is linked to spelling because the spelling supports the reading. And the oral reading practice needs to happen with decodable text. What that really means is that the passages, the sentences, the stories that we are having the students read must have the skills in them that are being directly taught. So we don't expect the students to read things that we haven't taught them. That wouldn't be effective. And so whatever we are having students practice needs to have the type of text in it that has been taught, the sounds and the syllables that have been directly taught. And this is that big multisensory piece I had mentioned earlier. This is a very powerful and necessary piece. The visual is the use of, course, the eyes. The auditory is the use of the ears. And then there's the kinesthetic and tactile. That kinesthetic and tactile part includes when you're tracing or when you're using a pencil, and that movement in the hand and the fingers, the arm movement as we are writing letters, and the speech musculature in the mouth, the tongue, the lips, and how that is all going together. And that is so powerful that it would be, for example, sometimes we use a mirror and let the student look in the mirror and see what is the mouth placement or the teeth placement or the tongue placement to make a certain sound. By feeling that and seeing it, and that really is helpful too. And the important thing about this is that it's simultaneous. So they're saying, hearing, seeing, and writing all at the same time. So if you just wrote a letter and just wrote it, you would be using some of those sentences. But if you write the letter and say the sound at the same time, notice then you're using all your senses all together simultaneously. And when it's simultaneous like that, the connections to the brain are so much stronger when it is all together at the same time. And I want to show you an example of a couple of data charts. The first one is a kindergarten class where we were using, what was being used was most of the senses that year, and as you can see, this was letter sound fluency. And at the end of the year, this is percentages, 9% are at the top, and in this case, the top is that tier 3. Those are the students that we still are concerned about, that they need more interventions. But then when we added, if you look at the next chart, what happens when we added the multisensory part using all the senses at the same time? Look at what happened. Even that tier 3 were in they had achieved the goals for grade level. So it just is one example of showing the data that shows the powerfulness of the multisensory piece. So let's go back to the aha moment for me in my journey. So I'm thinking, okay, where do I get and what kind of instruction, what do we need? What is it that is needed? And this article pointed to the Orton-Gillingham approach. And let's take a look at why is the Orton-Gillingham approach effective? Well, because it's multisensory, and that is powerful. Scientific research is supporting its effectiveness. It is based on the alphabetic principle, and it includes the English language structure, the syllables, the syllable division, the morphology, and it is explicit. It follows a sequence, and it builds on each other. It is repetitive so that skills get learned very, very thoroughly and automatically. The synthetic and analytical part of it, what that means is it's the spelling supports the reading and vice versa, and that's so important too. And it's diagnostic. As we're teaching it, we are making diagnoses. What that means is we're seeing, okay, what was happening in this lesson? What can we do in the next lesson to help that confusion, and how can we review that? So one lesson is built on the previous lesson to keep building. And it's emotionally sound, and it is emotionally sound from lesson 1. And one of the things that makes it emotionally sound right from the beginning, right from lesson 1, is the fact that we first find out what the students already know. And so we take what the students already know and we build the first lesson based on that. So right away with the first lesson, the students feel successful, and that is so, so, so powerful and important. And it can be used, the Orton-Gillingham approach can be used one-on-one, small group, and whole group. So the multisensory approach, the lesson components, let me just share with you what a lesson would look like. It always would start with a review, and a review is just a little reteach of something that was the newest the day before, and maybe something that was a confusion the day before. And in the review, we tell them the sound, and they practice it, and then they read a word with it in it, and they spell a word with that review skill in it. And then a visual drill is the letter sound cards, and it's a quick review of the sounds that they've had taught already, and it goes very quickly, and it's very essential. A student can go through 50 sounds in about a minute, and they love it because these are all the review sounds, and they're kept fresh that way. And then using the sounds that have been taught, and it has a blending drill where they are reading words with the sounds that have been taught. And then the auditory drill is that multisensory piece again, where a student hears the sound, they repeat the sound, and then they write the spelling that would spell that sound. And then along with that, there's the simultaneous oral spelling and writing. So the teacher dictates a word for the student to repeat, segment out those sounds using that phonemic awareness, and sounding and writing that word. And what it is then they're using all of their skills in each part of it, and then introducing something new, reading, connected reading with that decodable text we talked about, and so that they are practicing those skills that they are perfecting in actual reading. And also there's a few words that just have to be rote memory words that are just memorized for reading and spelling because they don't follow the normal sound patterns. Well, the International Dyslexia Association was a place I went to get more information. And the website is www.interdys.org. There's many fact sheets. If you haven't been on that website, it's very, very informative. It has a parent's guide to effective instruction, recommended reading for professionals, spelling, dyslexia basics, multisensory structured language teaching, and it has a little checklist. Is my child dyslexic? Just as a little indicator. And a recommended reading for parents, and Orton Gillingham based and multisensory level education approaches to education. I found lots of good information and help through the International Dyslexia Association when I was on my journey. Keep in mind, my journey took almost 30 years. So, like I said earlier tonight, my hope is that by sharing my journey, your journey can be so much quicker. Then there's also the International Dyslexia Association Upper Midwest branch, which is sponsoring this webinar. And Brian had shared, I think, the website with you there. We have ongoing webinars and information there. And there's also a tutor referral database that is available. Now, what else to look for? There are some things to be kind of a buyer beware type of thing. Beware of too good to be true promises because maybe they are. For example, guarantees of a quick fix. We can't ever predict how long something would take, how quick something could take. There are no guarantees of a quick fix or guarantees of a timeline. Like, I would guarantee you that in 3 months your child will be on grade level, or in 1 year. There are no guarantees like that. And if they're trying to make a guarantee, I would beware of that. And absolutely, if there's an approach that omits or leaves out instruction based on the alphabetic principle and English language structure, that would be something to be aware of, because it's absolutely essential that students understand words and how words work. And that's what the students love. They love that it starts to make sense to them. We are teaching them how words work. And maybe as you're looking, if you are looking for an academic language therapist to work with your child, some questions to ask. What teaching approach are you trained in? Where did you receive your training? Maybe how many hours of training have you had? Did your training include a practicum? And by practicum, what I mean by that is that the person that has received training, there has been a portion where they're actually practicing it at the same time that they're learning it. So there's actually students that are there, and a master teacher is helping to coach you, teaching you how to create the lessons that are tailored for the student's needs, and actually coaching the trainee as the trainee is learning it and presenting lessons to a student. That is so essential to learning how to teach the approach. And how many hours of a practicum did you complete? If somebody tells you that they had a 3-day training, it probably wasn't complete enough to really give them the skills they need to effectively teach reading to your child. And another question is, what is your knowledge of dyslexia if your student has been diagnosed with dyslexia? And their references and their experience. Any qualified academic language therapist would be more than happy to share those answers with you. And what I love the most is the most effective testimonials to me come straight from the students. And they come from the students unsolicited. They come in the middle of a lesson, or they come at the end of a lesson, or at the beginning of a lesson, and they usually come with a smile. For example, a first grade student who was recommended for special education testing, okay, began receiving this type of instruction in the form of 30 minutes daily. Midway through the year, this student never was tested for special ed because the student was now able to keep up with his class, so he didn't even need to go through the testing. I'm just going to go back here. A second grade student commented, "I'm getting smarter. I can read now." And a third grade student, when asked by his family to explain why he could read so much better now, replied, "Well, you just need to remember the noises those letters make." What he was talking about there was the automaticity, that he knew those automatically now. And after 6 months of instruction, a struggling third grade student said with a big smile on his face, he said, "Oh, let me go back. I have a sentence for smart. I am smart in reading." And a struggling first grade student, after 4 months of intervention, said with a huge smile, "I'm a genius." Let me just go back one there. That was the one. I still remember this student's going, "I'm so smart, I'm so smart, I'm so smart," with a great big smile on his face. I love those. So, and I'm just sharing with you, trust your instincts. Go for the early intervention. Know that it is never too late, and persevere. Chances are, if your instincts are saying, "My child needs something more," you're probably right. And some takeaways I'd like to leave with you are that quality multisensory instruction based on the alphabetic principle, including language structure, those syllables and those syllable division rules, the morphology, building that automaticity, all of those things by a trained professional is essential. Keep in mind the big 5 of reading instruction. We want it to include all of those. And trust your instincts. If you feel your child needs help, you're probably right. Parents know their children pretty well. And persevere. Keep at it. And remember, it is never too late. Because nothing compares to the look of delight on a child's face when that printed word finally makes sense and reading a book becomes a joy rather than a chore. That is our hope for all students. I love this picture, just enjoying books. And I can just see on her face, like, I can't wait till I can do that myself. And here she is. Success. That is what we want for all students at all ages. If anybody has questions, I think Brian is there to field any questions he might have that you might have been asking throughout. And here is my email. if you think of questions later, feel free to email me. I am more than happy to respond. And if I don't know the answer, I will certainly look for it. I have people that I can ask and places I can go to try and get the answer for you, and I'd be more than happy to do that for you. So as you continue on your journey finding the answers, I wish you all the best, and I hope your journey can be much shorter than mine was. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jeannie. That was great. We can really tell your experience as we walk through everything there. And I just want to remind everybody that this was recorded, so you'll be able to find and revisit all of Jeannie's points along the way on our website afterwards. Usually it just takes us a day or two to get those things posted. We did get some questions as we were going along from a multitude of different places, so I do want to pass those along and get your thoughts here in the time that we have left. But I do also want to encourage everybody who's still on. We have a good-sized audience today. Again, keep posting those questions as we go through this, and I'll keep checking for new ones as we go, and we'll use the rest of our time wisely here. Jeannie, I'm going to start with a couple of questions. Number one, a couple of people remarked on the about halfway through your presentation, you showed a progress monitoring chart that had a black line for expected and the red line and the green line for successes and errors. Do you find, a couple of questions on that one, do you find that the, because one thing people noticed was just the timeline there. You've stressed over and over throughout this that this is not a 3 months to solution situation. But they noticed that it was that progress chart was over the course of 5 months or so. Do you find that the sort of that black line can be different depending on which age students start to get trained help?
Many times it does. It all depends on the student too, but it does seem that the earlier the interventions start, the quicker the response is, because I suppose one is that they haven't had so much that they have missed out on the learning. So the earlier probably the quicker the response is, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally, yes. Do you find, just again in your experience with presenting this material or sharing this material, that over the course of that timeline, again sticking with the same chart, but that it can be challenging to keep parents, teachers, or students engaged throughout that process? Because if you look at those lines, it's an impressive gain, but it is over time.
I think the main thing is if they are seeing progress and the student is feeling successful and knowing that they are making progress, everybody stays pretty happy. I haven't really found, are you thinking that, like, oh, it should be going faster, or somebody might be getting frustrated?
Yeah, the frustration, I think, is what the question was. Just that it can be ups and downs even on that chart. That went from over the course of a month, you can be making progress and slip back. It looked like.
And some of that too can be just a matter of like that. I think that was an AIMSweb one. There's also something called FAST, is the newest one out of the University of Minnesota Center for Reading Research. And I have heard from the people using it, I haven't personally used it, but the people that have been using it, that it's a little bit more accurate because the data is an indication, but it isn't, written in stone. And we're always wanting to look and check to see, if we're doing what we need to be doing in order for that student to be making progress. So it's always needs to be re-looked at as far as, is it effective?
Great. I'll move on to another question. One of the things that we've heard, teachers discover as they become teachers and as they really get, and I'm not talking about just the breadth of teachers here, is that they struggle with proper reading instruction. And so when you present this material with the wealth of knowledge that you have, but when they go back and face the classrooms, they are coming at this fresh. And so without all the training, without having learned every aspect of Orton Gillingham, what are some of the first steps a teacher who wants to help their kids in their room, whether it's a math teacher or a history teacher or whomever it may be, what are some of the first steps they can take to help those students? As far as helping them in the classroom outside of the instruction that they could be getting.
So in addition to what they might be getting as reading instruction, is that what the question is?
Yeah, in addition to reading instruction, how can they help that process as teachers in the classroom, as the non-reading instruction teachers that the student might be interacting with?
Sure. Well, with making sure the vocabulary, that they're teaching the vocabulary that goes along with their content area, like directly teaching that vocabulary so that can be directly learned. That would be huge in the content areas. And even in the content areas, there's some of the roots and the root words of their vocabulary in the content area. That would be helpful too, to be sharing that and teaching that directly. Great. Along with the vocabulary part.
Okay. We had one question about the transition. It was an instructor who had a student, and as they're transitioning from decodable texts during their reading instruction to the non-decodable text in the school setting itself, how best to bridge that transition as they are, they're seeing success in the training instruction and moving then to back to the normal schoolroom setting.
Sure. Well, to continue to read those decodable texts, but then if they need to be able to know the material in the other, the more the grade level, that maybe they need to have it read to them so that the comprehension can be there. But to be continuing in that decodable text, and that decodable text, of course, as they continue gaining skills, that decodable text is going to be increasing also in the reading levels at the same time. So the decodable text doesn't stay just at one level, that keeps increasing also.
Got it. Okay. I have one question about Orton Gillingham is certainly one of the tools that we want to be brought to our children's use when we are going into our IEPs, when we're looking for advocacy for our kids, but sometimes schools aren't familiar with those tools, aren't familiar with how they're going to be able to help kids get ahead. Can you suggest any research papers or anything else of a persuasive nature that parents could use to bring to those IEPs to help the schools move toward Orton Gillingham type resources for helping their children?
Well, one is right with FAST, as far as when I was talking about the FAST data, that actually, if a student is struggling in learning how to read, actually looking at a word and reading, being able to read the word, the FAST data will there's a drop-down menu, and the FAST data will actually say what interventions would be appropriate, and Orton Gillingham is actually one of the pieces. And also something else that is very, very helpful now is that I just read, and maybe you did too, Brian, that in October the National let's see, the Department of Education is really talking about dyslexia and the importance of offering the appropriate reading instruction that is necessary for that student. And, let me think too. I know that there are other publications, but off the top of my head, I'm not thinking of them. But let me check into that too, and I could somehow.
No, if you send it back
wanted,
to us, we can definitely publish that to all the attendees tonight. If there's extra materials you think of after we're done recording.
Sure.
That's wonderful. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Here's an interesting question. What you talk about is so effective and so intuitive, and again, research based. The question is, should all students receive this type of instruction? Rather than just those that have been identified as struggling?
That's an interesting and good question, too. They all are good. Actually, what they're finding out is that all students gain from this instruction because it's just plain good reading instruction. And so what they're finding is that struggling readers gain, but the readers that are already adequate or good readers, they also make the gains. So in answer to your question, some schools are starting to use it for all students, and then they're also using it as interventions so that the students that need more can get more in addition to. So yes, absolutely.
Do you think that, now I'm asking you to speculate a bit, but do you think in 10 years that we'll see more and more schools going to using this more as routine instruction rather than, again, just exceptional instruction?
The hope is there, yes, because there are more new teachers getting trained, and the colleges are supposed to be now, teaching the scientifically research-based reading instruction. So hopefully we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah. What can a parent, educator, school, etc., do if there's no one local that is trained in the Orton-Gillingham approach? We've actually heard quite a few of these people. I've seen this question before, but those of our audience who come from Canada see this a lot. But even rural areas, there just aren't trained professionals nearby.
Right, and that is tough. There are getting to be more and more that are doing online, and online is showing that it does work and it is effective. So that might be one option, that more and more how technology is getting out there, that there would be more and more people that would be able to do online tutoring, and that would be one possibility. Yep.
Yeah, you mentioned, I'm glad you brought that up. Certainly, online tutoring from a professional is a great idea, and with technology today, very much like the webinar we're holding right now, it's amazing.
Right.
There are also all of these reading tools that we run into, whether it's ABC Mouse, whether it's apps on our phones or other things that profess to also, they use the same words, they use the same thoughts and concepts to try to get people to use them as alternatives. Do you find that any of these things are effective, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, not to replace the actual instruction, but there are some really good apps out there that if they use the multisensory and they have the correct pronunciation of sounds, and there's some for like beginning readers that show letter formation and they can hear the sound at the same time. They can practice the letter formation and hear the sound. So there are some apps out there that are quite good.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
But they don't replace instruction, but there are some out there that are quite good actually.
Wonderful. That's great to hear. Well, we are reaching the end of our time. There are questions pouring in, but I do want to be respectful of everybody's time tonight. Thank you so much, Jeannie, for your time tonight. We're so lucky to have people like you and others come and do these webinars with us, and the value we get and the feedback we get is incredible. Thank you all of our attendees, but thank you so much, Jeannie, for being here.
Oh, you are welcome. Thank you for being there also, and it was my pleasure. Happy to do it.
Wonderful. Everybody, enjoy your nights. Thank you for being here, and check out our website not only for our past webinars, but those that are still coming up. They really are fast and furious, and we do our best to do as many of these as we possibly can. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. See you later.